to go back to Michael Shedlock. He's a registered investment advisor for SitkaPacific Capital Management, frequent guest on radio, TV, and with us today going over a host of economic issues for the next 22 minutes. Then I'm getting back into eugenics, your phone calls, and a ton of other important news. But I want to finish up my breakdown of the eugenics system and how they want to make us dependent, how they openly in their own textbooks want to bankrupt us. Isn't that a control freak? You just can't get away from them. They want to make you be under their control, sniveling pieces of control freak trash. Better men and women have to get involved and rise up and deal with these people. But before I go any further with our guests, I want to tell you about a few of the sponsors that have made this July 14th, this Tuesday edition of the radio show possible. One of them is survivalseedbank.com. In a real crisis, folks, having non-hybrid seeds means having the ability to grow an endless supply of nutrient-dense food to feed your loved ones. Regardless, it's about getting off the grid, getting self-sufficient. Even the first step on this 1,000-mile journey is really just a psychological step. Just get off the grid, start planting a garden, start thinking about what you're eating. Get your kids involved in it. They'll love it. Survivalseedbank.com. That's survivalseedbank.com or 877-327-0365. That's 877-327-0365 or survivalseedbank.com. Monsanto and the UN are buying up all the little seed companies, shutting them down. The globalists are building seed arc vaults, hoarding them. The GMO crops have been proven to, for some reason, have genetic alterations that cause sterilization in mammals. Gee, I wonder why. Obama's science advisor says he wants to sterilize everybody, mainstream news. The point is, get your Survival Seed Bank from survivalseedbank.com or 877-327-0365, 877-327-0365, survivalseedbank.com. And one last sponsor I want to tell you about is frontsight.com. Have you heard of the millionaire patriot, Dr. Ignatius Piazza? The founder of the Front Sight Firearms Training Institute is offering a free handgun and 5 days of firearms training to my listeners. The offer is only available for a limited time because Dr. Piazza is literally paying his own money out of his pocket to be able to offer you this deal. And it won't last forever, so listen up. You can attend 5 days of world-class gun training at Front Sight Firearms Training Institute and secure a 30-state concealed weapons permit, all for pennies on the dollar. Act fast, and they will give you a free Springfield Armory XD pistol in the caliber of your choice. I believe now is the time for you and your family to be armed and trained to levels that exceed even law enforcement and military standards. Front Sight provides such training without any boot camp or drill instructor attitudes. Thousands have already taken advantage of this opportunity, and you should too. Don't miss out. Go to frontsight.com today and get your free training and gun. That's frontsight.com, frontsight.com. Or visit them by clicking the banner on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Okay, going back to our guest, continue Michael Shedlock, MichaelShedlock.com, advisor with SitkaPacific Capital Management. The Federal Reserve starting to run scared. People have found out they're private, they're above the law, that they've given hundreds of billions of dollars to their buddies, that it's a revolving door. And finally, there's almost 260 sponsors to audit it. The Senate has blocked the audit, but that only makes people want the audit that much more. What's really happening with the economy? How are they cooking the books? And as you said, the Fed said 2 days ago, it's a jobless recovery. That's like 1984. That means the elite are recovering and consolidating all wealth and power, but that under a new booming economy, we all, I guess, go into bankruptcy and live under bridges. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, my gosh. I think that kind of sums it up a little bit here. Actually mentioned so many things. But the important thing here is the jobless recovery and also what's going to happen with housing. It's interesting. Let's do a flashback to October 27, 2005. Ben Bernanke appeared before Congress, and he said that there's no housing bubble to go bust. This shows you, just how far off base he was.
Well, it shows you they're liars. They engineered the whole thing. We infiltrated Bilderberg when they were planning all this in 2006, but go ahead.
He said the housing increases largely reflect strong economic fundamentals, such as the strong growth in jobs, incomes, and the number of new households. That's so preposterous. It's just unbelievable. Meanwhile, in summer of 2005, on my blog, I declared the peak of the housing bubble. I nailed it. And one of the reasons was right at the time Time magazine came out. The cover of Time magazine was housing. Why we're gaga over real estate. I looked at that and said, my God, Time magazine is gaga over real estate. Sentiment doesn't get any more extreme than this. This has to be the peak. Indeed, that was. And magazine covers like that often serve as contrarian indicators. By the way, you can find my blog, Global Economic Analysis, .blogspot.com. I write on housing, the economy, jobs every day. That's a mouthful to remember. So just do a Google search for Mish, M-I-S-H. Do a Google search for Mish. It'll land you right on my blog. Talk about these topics every day. But let's continue with housing a little bit here. In February 12th, 2008, Bernanke said that housing would recover by the end of the year. What's happened? Housing prices went on their biggest, most massive decline ever by Case-Shiller housing index. That's a real index. So the question is Bernanke just talking? Does he really believe what he's saying? Is he lying, or is he a dunce? Or is it a combination of both? Those are the questions that I keep asking myself, and I don't think housing's bottomed. If you look at these charts, if you look at what's happening in jobs, if you look at things that are happening with subprime loans and all these liar loans and something called Alt-A mortgages, I don't think the housing bottoms until 2012. And here Bernanke thought that it was going to bottom in 2008. Of course, 2 years before that, he didn't think there was a housing bubble at all. These are the people that are running the Fed. And, of course, Ron Paul wants to audit the Fed. The Fed's taken trillions of dollars worth of assets on its balance sheets. Ron Paul wants to audit the Fed, say, what are these assets on the balance sheet really worth? How much are taxpayers footing the bill for all these mistakes the Fed's making? It got blocked in the Senate on a procedural move. And, of course, in the House, even though 260, a majority of the representatives want this bill to pass in the House, Representative Barney Frank is stalling the legislation. It has not even come up for review yet. That's what's going on.
Now, this jobless recovery, now they want another banker bailout. They already got unlimited funds, basically. They can just always keep reissuing. The $700 billion is the way they describe it.
$700 billion,
yes. Yes, $700 billion. And they can just keep issuing that in perpetuity. And so, at the same time, this new power they want is more power for the Federal Reserve over wider sectors of the economy. And so the more bad things they do to the economy, the more power they get to fix the problems they caused to begin with.
Oh, absolutely. I've written about that on many occasions. I called for that to happen. It concentrates power in the hands of people who have proven they don't know what they're doing. The Fed doesn't know where interest rates should be any more than they should know what the price of orange juice would be. Imagine what would happen if the Fed came out tomorrow and said, we're going to set the price of orange juice at $1.80 a gallon. People would look at them and be appalled. They would be scared to death over that. Yet somehow we allow the Fed to come out and determine what the price of interest should be, what mortgage rates should be, and they want power into other things to regulate more banks and financial institutions. The Greenspan created this housing bubble on purpose back in 2002, 2003. At the time, his banking buddies were in hock they made poor loans to .com companies that weren't being paid back. The banks made poor loans to Latin America, to places like Argentina, who was defaulting on loans. So in an effort to bail out the banks at the time from the .com bust and the bad loans to Argentina, created a housing bubble, I believe on purpose, to reflate the economy, except that it got out of hand. The bubble got worse than they even imagined. Greenspan retired, dumped the problem on Bernanke. Bernanke never saw what was coming, or certainly didn't do anything about it if he did. And, here we are today in exactly the same situation, and the Fed's trying to get banks to lend, and Geithner, who's the worst Treasury Secretary ever, I thought Paulson was bad, and we've got someone here who's now worse, trying to get banks to lend is exactly the wrong thing to do.
Well, Mr. Shedlock,